Madison, it's been a while. It really has. I knew you worked here, but I never had a reason to come to this hospital before now. Well, this is the pediatric department after all. Okay then, let's just go for it. Don't hold back and pretend it's not for yourself. Are you scared of the shot? Not scared at all. Wow, what a tough little guy. I had brought Spencer to the hospital where Sanders, my junior from medical school, worked to get him vaccinated. Everything was set up and ready to go, and I watched as the needle slowly approached Spencer's arm. Despite his tough act, I could see the tension in my son's face. Just as the needle was about to pierce Spencer's skin, my cell phone suddenly started ringing. Madison, please turn off your cell phone. Sorry, it's from work. Don't mind me, just keep going. I waved my hand dismissively, trying to downplay the interruption. I forced a reassuring smile, then quickly made my way out of the exam room and to the hospital entrance to return the call. I hated leaving Spencer when he was about to get his shot, but he wasn't acting scared and I trusted Sanders completely. After a few minutes on the phone, I hurried back to the exam room. To my surprise, Sanders was waiting for me in front of a different room, just before the one we had been in previously. Madison, please come this way. I entered the room as instructed. It appeared to be another exam room. However, no one else was inside. Huh? Where's Spencer? Sanders entered behind me, carefully closing the door. He sat down on one of the chairs and fixed me with an intense, almost piercing gaze. Spencer is waiting with a nurse in the previous exam room. What's going on? Why the scary face? Did you find some terrible illness in Spencer? Sanders didn't answer right away. Instead, he patted the round chair in front of him, silently guiding me to sit. I sat down as directed. I had no idea what Sanders was about to say. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. After a few seconds of listening to my own racing heartbeat, Sanders finally spoke, his voice heavy with emotion. Leave your husband. What? Sorry. I unintentionally used a strong tone there. From here on, I'll speak to you privately as a friend, not as a doctor. That's why I had the nurse leave too. Is that okay? Brace yourself and listen. I couldn't believe what I was hearing from Sanders. After absorbing this shocking revelation, I left the hospital, dropped Spencer off at daycare, and went straight to City Hall to get divorce papers. My name is Madison. I'm 38 years old and work an office job. In contrast, my husband Tarek, who is 7 years older than me, is an elite IT consultant at a foreign company. When comparing our annual incomes, it's like night and day. I'm around 40, so people often assume I've been married for a long time. However, I only started dating Tarek in my early 30s, and we've only been married for 3 years. I got married at 35, so there were concerns about whether I could have children at my age. But that wasn't an issue at all. You! Robert, you idiot! It's your fault for being in the way. Allison, Spencer is crying. I bet Robert did something again. Can you go check on him? I can't leave the kitchen while preparing breakfast. Got it. Juliet, did you grab your bag with your homework? Not yet. It's somewhere. You're always misplacing things. Go find it yourself. But Allison won't help me. Mom, can you look with me? What? I'm trying to get everyone's lunch bags ready too. Mom, we're fine over here, so please help her look. If we leave her to search alone, I don't think she'll find it even if 12,000 years pass. This is a battlefield. Right now, I'm in a battlefield. Every morning, our house is filled with the echoes of angry yelling and crying, and everyone frantically rushing around. The only person unfazed in this chaos is Tarek. He elegantly sips his coffee, completely unbothered by the commotion surrounding him. When I married Tarek, he already had children from previous marriages. In this day and age, with 1 in 3 marriages ending in divorce, it's not unusual for a spouse to have kids from prior relationships. But in Tarek's case, he had been divorced 7 times and had 5 children. The oldest, Michaela, is 17 and from his first marriage. His second marriage produced no children, but 13-year-old Allison and 11-year-old Robert are from his third. The fourth and fifth marriages were also childless, but 7-year-old Juliet came from the sixth and 5-year-old Spencer from the seventh. As someone who had never been married nor given birth before, I was understandably overwhelmed to suddenly have 5 children. When we first got married, I was so flustered, not knowing where to even begin. But it was the eldest daughter, Michaela, and the second daughter, Allison, who guided me through everything. Robert is wearing his jersey under his school uniform. Is that okay? Even in summer, on days when we have PE, we wear our jerseys underneath. Why is that? It serves as underwear. With so many of us, it's a way to reduce the amount of laundry we have to do. So, after PE, they put their uniforms back on over the jerseys? Won't the uniforms get dirty? Everyone ends up dirtying their uniforms anyway. If you don't want to get your uniform dirty, you just have to be careful not to get your jersey dirty, right? This way, they'll learn to be mindful of keeping their clothes clean, and it'll become a habit for their other clothes too. It doubles as a lesson, I see. Interesting. I was amazed by the ingenuity that came with managing a large family, and I expressed my appreciation with a long, drawn-out hum as I nodded my head up and down. The children didn't seem to mind having a different mom. They all worked together to keep things running smoothly. Michaela and Allison took on the role of a mother together, with Juliet and Robert providing support. Spencer, the youngest, was still learning by observing his older siblings. The reason the children were so responsible was that Tarek never had time for household matters. Well, I'm off, Tarek said calmly, finishing his coffee amidst the chaos. Without a second glance at the children, he left for work. When people hear about Tarek's 7 divorces, they often wonder if there's something wrong with him. But the reason for the divorces wasn't that Tarek was a bad person. He worked hard for the sake of the children. Before we got married, he would often vent to me with a hint of amusement in his eyes. No matter how much I work, I can never save any money because of the kids. That's why I do some investing on the side, but money just doesn't grow the way you want it to, you know? The children seemed to understand that Tarek was working hard for their sake, and I heard they had learned to take care of themselves. Since getting married, I felt like I was living a very fulfilling life, surrounded by a diligent Tarek and his wonderful children. However, this was only because I hadn't yet faced reality, blinded by the relief of getting married before 40 and my lack of experience with childbirth and child-rearing. 3 years into our marriage, Michaela was in her second year of high school, and it was time to start thinking about her future. So, I brought up the topic of Michaela with Tarek. About Michaela's college plans. College? Has she decided where she's applying? She's only decided that she wants to go to a STEM university. I think it's best to let Michaela go where she wants, but I thought we should discuss the tuition and the possibility of her living on her own beforehand. She can just let us know once she's decided on a university. I'll leave it to you. Again? You did the same thing when she was applying for high school. College is directly linked to employment and her future, you know? I want to hear your thoughts on this. I think Michaela should go wherever she wants. That's my opinion. I've got my hands full just earning enough money for the kids to live on. You think about that stuff and do what you want. As if he didn't want to discuss it further, Tarek left the living room, leaving me behind. I tried to stop him, but the words caught in my throat when he mentioned work. Tarek works hard for the children. Despite having 5 kids, the fact that we can live comfortably is thanks to Tarek. We definitely couldn't do it on my income alone. That's why, whenever Tarek says work, I find myself at a loss for words. I decided to start by looking up how to choose a STEM university on my own. Apparently, this was the reason for his 6th and 7th divorces. Tarek became so focused on work that he completely left the childcare to his ex-wives. With so many children, the ex-wives couldn't handle the childcare and ended up abandoning it and running away. In my case, Michaela and Allison are already grown up and act more like moms than I do. So we're managing somehow, but if the 2 of them were still at an age where they needed a lot of attention, I might have gotten fed up too. In my mind, I bowed my head to Michaela and Allison, silently thanking them for all they do. A few days later, an incident prompted me to learn more about parenting.
Michaela! Robert took the game! I'm not done playing yet.
You've been playing this whole time, haven't you? Robert's been waiting for his turn, so be patient for a bit.
No! I'm in the middle of a level.
With 5 children, the house doesn't just turn into a battlefield in the morning. The kids often make a ruckus at night too. Today, a fight over the game started between Robert and Spencer. From the looks of it, Spencer is being selfish, wanting to play the game. Spencer ignores Michaela's words and continues to bark in a high-pitched voice. Just as I thought this ear-splitting situation would go on for a while, Tarek, who had been sitting with me on the living room sofa, suddenly stood up and headed towards Spencer.
You're being too loud. Come here for a second.
He grabbed Spencer's arm and dragged him to Robert and Spencer's room. His expression was clearly one of anger. I had never seen Tarek get angry at the children before, so seeing that look on his face terrified me a little.
I'm sorry. I'll wait for the game.
Spencer cried, seeming to sense Tarek's rage. He resisted, digging in his heels and crying as he tried to avoid being taken away. But he was no match for an adult's strength. Spencer was dragged along like a dog who had stopped in the middle of a walk, pulled by its owner on a leash.
You! Don't cause trouble for Michaela. She's always looking after you.
At the same time as the sound of the children's room door slamming shut, I heard Tarek's shouts, louder and angrier than I'd ever heard before. Worried, I tried to go check on the situation in the kids' room. But Michaela grabbed my arm, stopping me in my tracks. Dad and Spencer will be fine. But in our family, getting scolded by Dad like that is like a rite of passage for the kids. I didn't quite understand what Michaela meant, but since she said it would be fine, I backed off and sat down on the sofa. After a while, Spencer's crying stopped. A little later, Tarek and Spencer returned to the living room. I'm sorry about earlier. No more being selfish, okay? Before I could fully grasp the situation, everything seemed to have been resolved without issue. Wondering what had happened, I asked Tarek for an explanation. I heard some really loud shouting. Was everything okay? Huh? Oh, sorry. I must have startled you. This is my unique way of disciplining the kids. First, I yell at them loudly to make them realize they did something wrong. Then, I explain to them why what they did was unacceptable. Is there a reason you go to the children's room? I go to the children's room so we can be alone, just the 2 of us. When it's just the 2 of us, the child will feel more comfortable talking about their feelings honestly, don't you think? I felt embarrassed for unnecessary worrying when Tarek took Spencer away. I also learned that parenting requires not only kindness but also strict scolding at times, and I realized I was still very much a novice when it came to raising children. As expected of a dad who has raised 5 children to this point. However, looking at Tarek's face, he seemed a little sad.
What's wrong?
No, I was just thinking about how this method has caused divorces in the past. Tarek sat down on the sofa and let out a small sigh. Apparently, this parenting approach led to his 3rd and 4th divorces. Tarek starts by scolding the child firmly. At that time, even I, an adult, felt a little frightened of Tarek, so a child being scolded alone with him might end up traumatized if things go wrong. Because of that, his ex-wives told him he was going too far. From there, they started to have disagreements about parenting styles.
What do you think? Do you think this way of doing things is no good? I was startled when I heard you shouting, and I was worried. But everyone's growing up so well, and they don't seem to be afraid of you, so I think it's okay. It's not like you get angry frequently, only when you absolutely have to, right?
Hearing my words, Tarek's expression relaxed, and he laughed a little. As I looked away from Tarek, my eyes met Michaela's, who was nearby. She seemed to be trying to tell me something with her eyes. See? Just like I said, there was nothing to worry about, right? That's surely what she wanted to say, but she must have read the room and realized she shouldn't interrupt a conversation between husband and wife. They really are such thoughtful children. As I turned my gaze back to Tarek, he started talking about our living situation.
By the way, do we have enough money? Michaela and Allison are getting bigger, and Spencer will be in elementary school soon. I'm sure there will be various expenses. Well, even if you tell me we don't have enough, there's not much I can do about it. It's fine. There's no problem at all.
Tarek's eyebrows drooped, and his expression turned anxious. In this short span of time, his facial muscles had been busy, going from angry to sad to worried. I couldn't help but laugh at the varied changes in Tarek's expressions. Tarek worries about money from time to time. However, Tarek is well aware that we have enough money. Even so, he periodically checks, likely because of the reasons for his 1st and 2nd divorces. Until his 2nd marriage, he only had 2 children, so there were no financial concerns. However, his ex-wife took advantage of Tarek's good income and the fact that he was busy with work and came home late. She apparently spent Tarek's hard-earned money freely on her own enjoyment. I think divorcing her was the right decision. Tarek has gone through 7 divorces, but in these 3 years, I've come to realize once again that the reason wasn't that Tarek was a bad husband. However, I've also noticed that this was just Tarek's flaws being well hidden. Spencer, the youngest, is 5 years old, so it's about time for his 2nd chickenpox vaccination. Tarek basically has a hands-off approach to childcare, but I decide to inform him about the vaccination, just in case.
Spencer has a vaccination coming up.
Then have Michaela take him to the usual hospital. That's what we did for Juliet, right?
I did ask her that time, but I don't think it's good to rely on Michaela too much.
Vaccinations don't happen that often. If you think relying on her too much is bad, it would be much better to help out with the housework, don't you think? Besides, it's more efficient for someone who's used to it to go.
Well, that's true, but...
Is Tarek in a good mood today? Normally, I'd expect him to just say I'll leave it to you and push everything onto me, but he's expressing his thoughts in detail about what should be done. It's rare for Tarek to think about the children, but even so, I decided that this time, I would be the one to take Spencer for his vaccination.
About Spencer's vaccination? Oh, I heard from Dad. I'll take him. No, you're always helping out, so I'll go this time. I'm taking the day off tomorrow to spend the whole day catching up on household stuff, so for once, why don't you go hang out with your friends after school? You always come straight home to prepare dinner, right? That would be nice, but does Dad know? Huh? He told me to have you take Spencer, but he never says anything anyway, so even if I go instead, it's not like he'll complain.
Michaela's brow remained creased as she pondered something, deep in thought. She must be worried about me taking the day off.
Don't worry about work. Even adults feel like playing hooky sometimes, I said with a conspiratorial wink.
I see. Well then, I guess I'll take you up on that. Michaela relented, though the furrow in her brow remained. I thought she was just being considerate about my work and marveled at what a thoughtful child she was. However, in exchange for letting me handle the vaccination, Michaela started saying something strange. Let's just say I'm the one taking Spencer for his vaccination, and keep it a secret from Dad, okay?
Why?
Well, you know, if Dad finds out that Mom went instead of me, even though he told me to go, he might get angry, don't you think?
I don't think that would happen, but, all right, I understand.
The crease between Michaela's eyebrows still hadn't disappeared. It was clear that Michaela was hiding something. However, I thought it would be tactless to pry too deeply into what she was concealing, and since Michaela was a responsible girl, I believed she wouldn't hide anything truly concerning. So, I decided not to ask any further questions. I took the day off and brought Spencer to get his vaccination. Michaela had told me about a hospital they always went to whenever something came up with the children. Tarek had also said to have Spencer vaccinated at that hospital, but I decided to take Spencer to a different one. Sanders, a junior of mine from middle school, ran a pediatric clinic in the next town over, so I chose to go there instead. Are you scared of shots?
Not at all. Falling and hurting myself is way more painful.
We hopped into the car and headed to the clinic. I had been worried about Spencer being afraid, but it seemed that concern was unnecessary.
Madison, it's been a while.
It really has. I knew you worked here, but I never had a reason to come to this hospital, I replied, returning his smile.
Well, this is a pediatric clinic, after all.
Seeing Sanders after so long, I couldn't help but fall into casual conversation. Behind Sanders, the nurse was laughing. Suddenly coming back to myself, I felt a little embarrassed. Okay then, let's just go for it.
Don't hold back and pretend it's not for yourself. Are you scared of the shot?
Not scared at all.
Wow, Spencer is brave.
Even when Sanders prepared the injection, Spencer showed no signs of fear whatsoever. I'd heard that some children cry and scream in protest, so this was a relief. Everything was ready, and the needle slowly approached Spencer's arm. As expected, Spencer's expression grew tense. Just as the needle was about to reach Spencer's arm, my cell phone suddenly started ringing.
Madison, please turn off your cell phone.
Sorry, it's from work. Don't mind me, just keep going. I stepped outside to the hospital entrance and returned the call to my company. I had left my child who was about to get a shot, but Spencer wasn't scared, and the doctor was Sanders, so it should be fine. After a few minutes on the phone, I hurried back to the exam room. To my surprise, Sanders was waiting for me in front of a different room, just before the one we had been in previously.
Madison, please come this way.
I entered the room as instructed. It appeared to be another exam room. However, no one else was inside. Huh? Where's Spencer? Sanders entered, sat on a chair, and fixed me with an intense, piercing gaze.
Spencer is waiting with a nurse in the previous exam room.
What's going on? Why the scary face? Did you find some serious illness in Spencer? Sanders patted the round chair in front of him, silently guiding me as I stood frozen at the entrance. I sat down as directed. Not knowing what Sanders would say, my heart began pounding loudly from the tension. After listening to my heartbeat for a few seconds, Sanders heavily opened his mouth. Leave your husband. What?
Sorry. I unintentionally used a strong tone. From here on, I'll speak to you privately as a friend, not a doctor. That's why I had the nurse leave too. Is that okay? Brace yourself and listen.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing from Sanders. After absorbing this shocking revelation, I left the hospital, dropped Spencer off at daycare, and went to City Hall to get divorce papers. That night, I sat firmly on the living room sofa, arms crossed, waiting for Tarek to come home. I heard the sound of a key turning in the front door, followed by the door closing. Tarek's footsteps, unaware of anything, approached the living room. I'm home. Huh? What are you doing? Tarek asked as he entered the living room, instantly sensing my unusual aura. He also seemed to notice the divorce papers placed on the table. Tarek appeared to be gauging how much I knew and what I would say, keeping his mouth tightly shut and not moving from where he entered the living room. If he wasn't going to move, I had no choice but to make the first move. You've been abusing the children, haven't you? What? Abuse? What are you talking about? Tarek feigned ignorance, his eyes wide with fake confusion. But I knew he was just pretending not to know while considering his next move. However, no matter how much he thought about it, the moment I learned everything, Tarek was cornered. Therefore, regardless of what Tarek was thinking, I pressed forward without hesitation. I went to the hospital today for a vaccination. You took him? That's right. To a different hospital than usual. There, the doctor noticed bruises on Spencer's body. What? Bruises? Kids get bruises sometimes, don't they? Were there so many that it was clear it was abuse? No, it wasn't to the extent that it could definitively be called abuse. But there were quite a few, and they were all in places that are hard to see, like his legs, back, and stomach. And you suspect me of abuse based on just that? Give me a break. That's not all. When I said I noticed the abuse and wanted to help you all, Michaela told me everything about you. Michaela talked? Tarek's expression changed in an instant, going from flippant to furious. He glared at me, his face like that of a demon. You hold back on the violence when the kids might have to show their bodies outside or at the hospital, right? That girl, she really talked, huh? You told Michaela to take Spencer to the usual hospital to hide the abuse, didn't you? The hospital I took Spencer to contacted them to confirm. The usual hospital knew we had 5 kids and lied, saying our kids fight all the time and often get bruises. You made Michaela say that too, didn't you? How could you tell such lies? Every morning our house is like a battlefield, but no one gets into physical fights. Tarek's eyes bore into me, glaring daggers. Even with the abuse exposed, he didn't seem ready to give up on making excuses. If that was the case, I needed to keep revealing what I knew to break his spirit. You used violence to instill fear in the children and make them obey you, didn't you? Michaela must have been terrified of you. That's why she didn't tell me directly about the abuse and instead had me take Spencer to the hospital. She was probably hoping the bruises would be noticed there. Just saying she would take him at first must have been scary for her. I can see how horribly you've treated those kids. Did you check the other brats' bodies too? I've only talked to Michaela so far. But even without checking, the other kids have bruises too, right? I'm scared to confirm it later. You ordered the kids to thoroughly hide those bruises, didn't you? Wearing jerseys to school was to hide the bruises too, wasn't it? They all change clothes in their own rooms, and they lock the door when they take a bath.
I thought it was a house rule, but that was to hide the bruises too, wasn't it? The kids thoroughly hid their bodies under your orders, so I never noticed.
What do you plan to do now?
I want a divorce. Then I'm turning you in to the police.
I thought this would make Tarek give up, apologize, or beg for help. However, Tarek laughed through his nose and said something I hadn't imagined. Turning me into the police, do you have evidence?
Michaela said she would testify. And there's the hospital diagnosis too.
How much evidential capacity does a kid's testimony have? And the bruises weren't bad enough to definitively be called abuse, right? You think the police will act on that? Even if they do, they'll probably just give me a warning at most, don't you think? Tarek scoffed, mocking my plan with a smirk. Honestly, I also thought it would be difficult to make Tarek face severe punishment in the current situation. But if he let his guard down like that, it worked in my favor.
We're not lawyers or police, so there's no point in talking here about whether the police will act or not. Let's discuss the divorce first. You'll agree to a divorce, right?
Oh, I'll divorce you as many times as you want. Tarek strode over to the table and filled out the divorce papers with practiced ease. The only one who would be damaged by the divorce was me. It was no skin off Tarek's back. He probably thought he had the upper hand. As he finished writing the divorce papers, his true feelings started to slip out.
If you can't be a housekeeper either, then get out.
It seemed Tarek had been repeating marriages to have someone take care of the children. Perhaps he also wanted to avoid the situation of being a single father, mindful of appearances. Tarek had a high income and was skilled at playing the role of a kind man. He would surely deceive a new woman soon and find another wife to become his housekeeper. Marriage is a personal choice, so I didn't feel sorry for the woman who would become his next wife. It's the fault of the one being deceived. That's why I also think it's my own fault for being fooled by Tarek. However, I couldn't let the children continue to suffer under Tarek's care. Above all, I had told Michaela I wanted to help. As soon as Tarek finished filling out the divorce papers, I swiftly collected them.
All right, I'll hold on to these. Would you mind leaving for today?
What? You're the one who should leave. Why do I have to go?
It's already late at night, so you can't take the children with you, right?
I don't understand what you're saying. It's obvious I'll be the one taking custody, isn't it?
Why, when you use violence against them? Don't you hate the children?
If they're gone, I'll lose my stress relief punching bags, won't I? Ah, but the older three are getting big now. They might start snitching like this time. You can have the top three. Leave the younger two. Arguing is pointless. Those brats are my kids, and I make way more money than you. I'll make them say they want to live with me while I'm at it. He had probably said the same thing to his ex-wives and taken the children from them. To me, Tarek was starting to look like a real demon. I expected horns, fangs, wings, and a tail to sprout from him at any moment. But then, unexpected reinforcements entered the living room. I'm already in high school, so you'll listen to my opinion too, right? If you're getting divorced, I'm going with Mom.
I'm going with Mom too.
Me too.
Spencer, who do you like more, Mom or Dad?
Mom.
I choose Mom too. You guys, you know what'll happen later if you say that, don't you?
Tarek shouted and glared at the children who had rushed to my aid. It seemed Michaela had explained the situation to everyone while Tarek and I were fighting, uniting them all. Normally, if Tarek glared and yelled at them, the children would have backed down in fear. However, every single one of them glared back at Tarek without cowering. What's with you guys? I can't deal with this. I'll throw you away myself. Tarek spat venomously before storming out of the house. Just before leaving, Tarek's expression seemed frightened. He probably hadn't expected a united counterattack from the children. After Tarek left, I put the divorce papers in an envelope and entrusted the younger children to Michaela and Allison before stepping out briefly. I dropped the divorce papers in a mailbox. On the very day I resolved to divorce Tarek, the divorce was finalized. Tarek and I were divorced. He was arrested for assault. However, since the only clear evidence was a diagnosis that the bruises were within a range a child could have caused, Tarek was not prosecuted. It felt a bit unsatisfying, but this outcome was actually ideal for the children and I. Because Tarek didn't end up in prison, he was able to continue working. Ideally, he needs to keep working since we require him to pay child support. However, the fact that he has an arrest record for abuse is significant, and apparently Tarek is subjected to cold stares at his company. No doubt it makes his job quite unpleasant. But with child support payments for 5 kids, he can't easily quit his current job and find another. I think he should keep working while enduring those icy glares until 5-year-old Spencer graduates college or starts working. Well, Tarek continuing to work while suffering is just an optional bonus for me. My real goal is to live with these 5 children. Hey, make sure you clean up properly. This house isn't as big as the old one. Sorry, I'll clean up now. I moved out of Tarek's house and began a new life with the children in a smaller home. Compared to our previous residence, it's considerably more cramped, so I feel bad for the kids. With the smaller space, the morning rush has become even more chaotic. You lot! No fighting, you hear? Juliet, did you grab your bag with your homework? I have it even without you asking every time. Yet somehow, the children's words feel a bit kinder. And even as they raise their voices, everyone's faces are smiling. Freed from the abuse, the children are starting to regain their true selves. From now on, I intend to do my best as their mom.